most of our projects related to emotional intelligence are based around the idea of leadership development. And our idea of leadership, and if you go online and look at some of the, if you look at some of the information around leadership development, you'll see all kinds of different perspectives on leadership. And basically our definition of leadership is a fairly broad-based definition, and in its simplest format, I like to say that it is the choice to be part of the solution. Because if we don't choose to be part of the solution, then of course the alternative is that we're choosing, and a lot of people don't feel like they're choosing to be part of the problem, but they are in effect choosing to be part of the problem. And this is the one of the issues with respect to organizations, that people are not necessarily all pulling in the same direction. People are, for whatever reason, not engaged in their work. They're not passionate about what they do. They're not excited. They don't bring their A game to work every day. And that is again, in a simple analysis, a lack of leadership on the part of that employee or on the part of that employee's direct supervisor. So we want to change that. We want to help people to understand that there are ways to support people and impact on people in a positive way, and all of those are leadership behaviors that we want to engender and help people with. And if you look at what it takes to be that kind of person, to impact on others in a positive way, then there is a model which we find very helpful and important, and that's the 15-factor model created originally by Dr. Ruben Baron in the early 90s, and has been modified in 2011 to give us our up-to-date model. And so this is a model that we find extremely useful as trainers and coaches, and we find that this is a model that can really help people to develop their ability to impact on others positively, increase employee engagement, and improve the effectiveness of organizations. And I see another one of our colleagues, Jen Lofgren, has joined us. Welcome, Jen.
Hi, David.
Jen, just saying that we're wanting to change up our programming a bit. So rather than have the usual demonstration of a debrief that Kim and I have been doing for several months now, we started in December by doing more of a discussion, more of a conversation. And today's topic is a fairly typical emotional intelligence engagement for us. So an organization will call, for example, and I'm just going to launch right into to the content for today, and I'm going to ask Jen and Kim and Sherwin to jump in whenever you like, or maybe I'll just simply direct a question to you, and we can have that discussion. And again, anyone else who has a Google Plus account, would like to jump in to our Hangout, that is, have your photo or your webcam appear at the bottom of the page and be able to discuss these issues with us directly, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, you can simply type in your comments on our YouTube channel. To begin, what is a typical call for us? Well, a fairly typical call for us is someone who calls up and says, we would like to know more about emotional intelligence. Can you maybe come in and give us an executive briefing, an overview, a summary of emotional intelligence? And so when I get those questions, and probably many of you can relate to this, you're wondering, where's this coming from? Why? What is motivating this inquiry about this concept of emotional intelligence? And so my question back to them might be something along the lines of, where did your interest in emotional intelligence come from? And where in the organization did it come from? In some cases, and I really like when this happens, it comes from a very senior person, maybe even the CEO, in which case people are really wanting to deliver on what the CEO is requesting. In the case of one of our projects, it came from the president of the country. And of course, when it comes from the president of the country, then everybody wants to make it successful. And so we like when that happens, because that suggests to us that we've got we sort of have the backing of the senior leadership. In which case, of course, that's really one of the best endorsements you can get. You want to try to build that endorsement if you don't have it, but if that's where it comes from, that's fantastic. In many cases, it comes from someone who is more junior in the organization, and they've learned about emotional intelligence, they've read about emotional intelligence, and they think that this is going to be something that's really going to help with some issues that are going on in the organization. And it's those issues that you really want to know more about. So what are those issues? Are the issues that they're looking for people to step up to the plate, to take initiative, to address other issues in the organization? Are they looking for people to act more like leaders than managers? And we talk about this a lot in our programs, the fact that if you know the work, you know your job, you're competent technically, you can probably be a manager. And people get promoted into those positions for those reasons, but then they don't necessarily know how or have been taught how to influence the behavior of others. And the employees that report to them are looking for that. They're looking for inspiration. They're looking for someone who is passionate about what they do. And in many cases, many managers have not been prepared for that part of the role. So they know the business, but they don't know the people and the whole side of understanding employee engagement as it leads to organizational effectiveness, these kinds of issues. And what we do in our work many times is talk about the fact that emotional intelligence, one of the great things about it is it refers to the fact that our brains have this wonderful ability to process emotions and emotional information. So many of you know that, and I won't dwell on that. We'll simply go back to the typical client. So one of the things that we suggest is a three-component way of addressing the issues that organizations are facing. One is assessment. And many of you know that we use the EQI, the Emotional Quotient Inventory, one of the leading assessment tools for EQ in the world. And then we like to organize or arrange a debrief prior to the event. Going back to our initial inquiry about the short executive briefing, when I start talking with people about how important EQ and emotional intelligence is to the overall effectiveness of their organization, they begin to think, and this is very common, that the short executive briefing that they originally had in mind is insufficient, and they would like us to do more, to broaden that delivery, that interaction with this content. So we generally plan a longer event than they originally had inquired about. And interesting how when they first think that they don't have the funds or the budget for it, once they realize how important it is, they find the budget, they find the money to make this happen. So it usually grows into a 1-day or a 2-day session, and the first thing we do is suggest that the participants take the EQI. So what we do then is we get a list of email addresses and we send out those email addresses, and then oh shoot. One thing you want to do when you have a webinar is turn off all of your ringers. Sorry about that. So the invitations go out. People log on to the secure website where they go to take the EQI, and then they go through the protocol, 133 statements that they respond to, and then we're able to go back on into the secure website, create the report, which goes to
Developmental Disabilities Association calling.
Which goes to
100% BC registered charity.
which then the report goes to one of our coaches, Jen, Kim, or Catherine, or Claudia, or Jeanette, or Diane, and then these people are able to walk through the results on the phone. So Kim, why don't you start us off, and just tell us, what is that first phone call like when you and we do lots of our debriefs by telephone because we're all in different cities, and clients, of course, are in different cities in many parts of the world, actually. But what's that first phone call like, Kim, when you call up to walk through someone's EQI results?
Well, that first phone call can really range in what kind of interaction it is. Most of the people that we end up dealing with have an interest in EI, and they're curious about how they're doing from an EI perspective.
I'm not hearing you, Kim. Are you able to hear me? Do you have your mic muted, or?
Oh my God.
David, we can hear Kim. I can hear Kim, David.
Oh, I see. I can't hear Kim. Wow. All right. So let's check out my settings then.
So Kim, go ahead. We can hear you.
Go ahead, Kim, and then pass it on to Jen for a minute while I figure out what's wrong with my ability to hear.
That first phone call, what really ends up happening there is we generate the reports based on the people's answers to the online assessment, and then we usually send them the report about 30 minutes prior to our conversation. And the reason for that is we don't want people going on a runaway train based on what their viewing of the results is. So it's nice to have them have a quick look at it, and then for us to take that hour to walk them through the report. And the way I like to look at it is it's really EI is our operating system. So, and it's broken down into 15 competencies, and we just kind of walk through that, and the discussion revolves around how a competency of emotional self-awareness is working for them now, and what would they like to look at in terms of working on that. So, and how is that fitting in for them, and how is that fitting in with their interactions with the team that they're working with. So from conversation, we usually end up having them do homework, and we will have follow-up conversations with those folks to talk about how those bits of homework have been going, how those new strategies that they've implemented have been turning. Are they successful or not? What kind of tweaking do we need to do to what they're working on? And then they go into a 1 or 2 day training event with Catherine, and so that's where they start working on that group aspect of EI. I've kind of rambled there. Sorry, it's been a bit of a scrambled morning for me too.
Maybe I'll jump in, Kim, and just give my perspective on coaching in the debrief. And how I work with clients is very much the same as Kim. You'll expect to receive your report about 30 minutes prior to our first debrief session together. And how we go through the report together is to give you context and walk you through the report as your thought partner to help you find where your areas of opportunity may be, and also help you recognize your strengths and how you can leverage those in terms of your development. And the beautiful thing that happens in those debrief sessions is there's often not a lot of surprises in terms of what you learn about yourself, but it rises things to the surface that you know you want to work on, and gives you context in how to work on that to make it real and help you apply it to your specific work circumstances. And an example of that is working with a very senior leader who had received a lot of feedback that she was too assertive. And she knew this about herself and was very frustrated in, how can I be less assertive and actually do my job? The feedback she received was a symptom of a different behavior. And when we went through the first debrief of the report together, we saw that assertiveness was high, and that was a strength she was recognized for. And also, it was an overplayed strength with empathy being really low. And when we were able to have the conversation about the empathy being low, she says, oh yeah, no, I just don't care how things land. It wasn't a surprise to her, but what we were able to do is create the understanding of how that impacted her leadership and pinpoint for her where that feedback around being too assertive came from. And finally, after many years of frustration with that feedback, she was able to see a way to grow and develop in that particular area to get the results she wanted. The next thing you can expect after your initial debrief, as Kim said, is going to the training, and after the training, having a minimum of 2 additional follow-up coaching sessions to really help integrate and apply that learning that comes from the debrief, the learning that comes from the workshop, to really give people value on their time invested in their development to integrate it back into the workplace and real results. Back to you, David.
Great, thanks, Jen. Very helpful. It's nice to have you on this Hangout.
Thank you.
We haven't had the pleasure of Jen joining us. She usually has something on Fridays that she's unable to get out of, and so very glad that you were able to join us this morning. So thanks, Jen. Great example, by the way. And really, you know, what we're about is we're about introducing people to this idea of emotional intelligence competencies, that there are basic skills and abilities that people can become aware of and improve for greater effectiveness in workplace interactions. And so the assessment is a great place to start people thinking about how they are, how well, or whether there are areas that they're not, that they don't do well in, that they could improve in. And then the purpose of the group session is really to introduce them to the model and how the model is actually connected to workplace effectiveness. So we want people to understand that something as simple as how you view yourself, that is self-regard, as one of our 15 competencies, becomes incredibly important to your behavior in a staff meeting. And whether you view yourself as someone who is confident and competent to participate and add value and make a great contribution, this is critical to your effectiveness in that staff meeting. And people don't understand how they can trace these things back and understand these things at a basic level. And so that's our hope, is that in the group session we get people discussing with each other how these 15 skills can improve their ability to do what they need to do on a day-to-day basis. And so the assessment is really important to have people thinking about themselves individually. And then the group session is really important to have them discussing, sharing, debating, even whether they think that that this is going to be something useful for them back in the workplace. And emotional intelligence is one of those things that there are some preconceived notions, beliefs about what it is, and it has a bit of a reputation. People think, well, it's emotional, and emotions don't have a good reputation in our society. And it's interesting to us that we continue to get people who have this kind of hesitation or reluctance to talk about something that has the word emotional in it. And Kim, I know you know about this, and that you've got some great experience and comments related to it. So Kim, just maybe talk a little bit about how people are when they're first confronted with this concept of emotional intelligence.
Well, I think it's interesting that I can often find that from middle-aged males who can oftentimes be the most reluctant to talk about emotional content. So I've had some curious and humorous interactions with people where that initial phone call looks like, yes, Kim, I know, you're going to tell me that I'm not emotionally intelligent. I realize that, and I'll just then get on with my life. And I think that what we end up talking about is how this is something that's applicable in every aspect of everybody's life. An awareness of how I'm operating, and how well that's working for me as an individual and those people around me. And one of the things that I found with some of those people, and they're not all just middle-aged males, it's every age and gender, that are reluctant to talk about emotional content, is to talk about their personal lives. Sometimes that can be the starting point in the discussion, in the conversation, in the dialogue, rather than the workplace setting. And what ends up happening is talking about how they're appearing in their own personal life with regard to their spouse, their kids, their friends, and what parts are working well there and what parts aren't working so well. And often that can engage people in the exploration of emotional content a little bit quicker than at the workplace, where they feel they need to be a bit more guarded. So I think you can take a number of different approaches with people. It's about them getting comfortable and feeling that it's a secure place to talk about emotions. So we're very serious about confidentiality, about letting people know that all of our conversations are absolutely confidential, and that people own the contents of the report, and that those conversations with our coaches won't go anywhere else.
Kim, if I can just add to the confidentiality piece, something that's come up with a number of clients when they have their first debrief and looking at going to the workshop in the next couple of days, they often ask the question, will I be asked to share my profile in the workshop? So back to that confidentiality piece, in the workshops we never ask participants to share their particular profile and deal with their specific learning and development areas. It's up to them if they want to share some of that information. Their profile is not used and shared with other participants in the workshops.
Yeah, good
Great,
point.
thanks, Kim and Jen. And you know, we're in an interesting position as consultants to organizations, and that interesting position is that in many cases these employees are asked to participate in something to which saying no is not a good idea. So you know they've been offered this program, this learning event, this group session, and it's not good for them to say no. Actually, I don't want to come. So how they come into the room is a mix of people who are very interested. Some people have read about emotional intelligence, they're very excited about the session, they think it's wonderful, and other people are a bit more suspicious and cautious. And of course, if we're going to ask people to make a change in their life, which is what essentially we do with our programming, with our group sessions, with our assessment and our coaching, we're asking people to make changes. They have to be bought in. They have to be sold on the fact that this is a good idea for them. And so that's one of the things that we really have to work at, and we really have to get people on board with us and realize and agree that this is a good thing to do. That we're actually not about exposing anybody or putting anyone on the spot or making anyone feel uncomfortable, which sometimes, as Jen mentioned, sometimes is a potential thought that they might have. But then it's the confidentiality. Then it's the fact that we try to make things fun. And really connect it to what's relevant, and give them some practical tips and tricks right away that they can use back in the workplace. That they start to get bought in and start to realize that making these changes is a good thing.
David, I think that's the beauty of our process in terms of having a debrief prior to the workshop. Having that first debrief really sets the stage for the experience that our participants are going to go through, allows them to experience their own report in a confidential, safe environment, and also understand the context of emotional intelligence for themselves before experiencing it in a group environment. So I believe that process really does contribute to the success of the program, not only for us, but for each and every participant that comes from a variety of different perspectives to the workshop.
Absolutely, Jen. Thanks for that. And there was a time when when it was just me, the company that is, I would give everybody the EQI, and then do the debriefs after the session. And when we started having the ability to provide debriefs before the session, it actually goes much better, because people are not sitting in the group session as we're going through the various competencies, wondering how they do on that, wondering what their level of ability is in that area. They know, because they've taken the EQI and they've reviewed their results with Kim or Jen or Catherine or Claudia or Jeanette, and they have an idea and a sense of what that is for them, so they can focus more on the application, more on the relevance to the workplace, to the work that they do, and you know, emotional intelligence really lends itself well within organizations to the various areas where people skills are the #1 factor in determining how effective that goes. So leadership and team effectiveness, customer service and sales, those are all based on human interactions, and when you look at what people skills actually consist of, they actually consist of how we manage ourselves and understand ourselves in terms of our emotional makeup and our response to various situations and circumstances, and to begin to understand that others have their own unique emotional landscape and emotional world going on inside of them. And how can we understand that in the best way and connect with them for better working relationships? And this it becomes what we talk about most of all, is how can we connect for better workplace relationships. And so we go through the group session, people have a good time, it's fun, it's interactive, they are able to talk about some of the issues within the organization, they learn some models and some skills and some tools that they can take back with them and actually use in various situations and circumstances in the workplace. And then the individual work carries on with the subsequent coaching sessions, and again, maybe Kim, you can talk about sometimes people think that it's all about improving one or two or three of the aspects of emotional intelligence that are revealed in their initial assessment. But give us an example or talk about maybe some of the things that people are really interested in zeroing in on as a result of the process that we've started them down. Talk about that a bit, Kim, please.
Well, I think Jen's example earlier was splendid, because I think a lot of people, and how human of them and us, to be concerned about low scores and pleased with high scores. And I think, in Jen's example, it was pointed out that scoring really strongly in any one competency has its upsides and its downsides. And I think that's the important exploration in our coaching conversations. How is that strong assertiveness working well for you and others, and what kind of deficits are with regard to that? So I really like Jen's example of working on that particular person's empathy as a way to counteract that tendency, that default response of being strongly assertive all the time at all costs. So it's that developing a well-rounded sense of how I'm operating as a person, and the fact that it's in constant flux. These are not static competencies at all. As things change around us, as things change internally, that EI goes up and down. We're constantly, all of us, works in progress. It's a matter of balancing all 15 of those competencies, and there is no magic plateau that we get to in the end. It's a lifelong journey of being aware of how I'm operating, what the impact is, and what adjustments to make given what's happening.
Thanks, Kim. Jen, did you want to weigh in on this topic?
Well, I might go back to my last example in terms of that leader that received feedback about being too assertive. And I work with a lot of leaders that receive that feedback that they need to be assertive to do their jobs effectively. And looking at how to round out that skill by bringing in a partner skill that supports it, whether it's balancing it with impulse control and really thinking before they speak, or balancing it with empathy and looking at the delivery. It's the message needs to be shared, but how am I delivering that message? How am I being assertive and caring about how it lands so that I can be most effective in delivering that message and building buy-in is a topic that often shows up. And then another topic that I find shows up is this pursuit of meaning and fulfillment, self-actualization. Shows up with a number of leaders that I work with. Regardless of how high the score is, it often comes into looking at where that score is in relation to some of the other scores, and how that's a strength that can help leverage some other areas of development, or how does that area of development and self-actualization really impact how they're showing up as a leader with personal leadership or leadership in terms of leading others. Those are two trends that I see a lot. And lastly, I would say that I've worked with leaders that have received feedback over a number of years and never known how to address it. And by raising their awareness in terms of how one skill interrelates with others, they suddenly have clarity in how they can have control over their own professional development and leadership.
Great, yeah, absolutely, and I'm sure Jen and Kim, you can relate to the idea that some of the issues that we find in organizations is as a result of this transition from sort of the what I call old school, for lack of a better term, and that is more of the kind of command and control kind of autocratic leadership style, moving towards more of a team-oriented or a more collaborative kind of way of working together. And sometimes, again, depending on the generations, because the younger generations are more used to a collaborative working style, having grown up and been collaborative in school and university, and so entering the workforce, they are used to more of a collaborative working style, but not knowing which way to go, because they see some of their role models being quite controlling in their leadership style, and so they're not sure. They try to adopt that controlling method of leadership, and then they are surprised when it alienates certain people, and don't know how to adjust and adapt. And I guess that's one of the things that we're really asking people to do, is to adjust and adapt to the situation, the circumstances, and the individual that they're working with, and to be attuned to the emotions of others to the extent that they can make those adjustments on the fly. And again, going back to that meaning and purpose, it is such a critical piece of finding fulfillment in the work that we do, and I think that the old school says, suck it up, princess. This is your lot. This is what you had the opportunity to do, and you're lucky to have a job. So just keep on doing it. And we find that people are stressed out, and they're burnt out, and they're unhappy as a result of an old way of thinking. Young people today, they know that they're probably going to have 4 or 5 fairly significant careers in their lifetime, and that it's not going to be the kind of the way that certainly my parents' lives were, about one job, one company for their whole lives. And
I just went back and watched the video we recorded earlier today and noticed that the ending has been cut off. And so my apologies to all of you. What is missing are some great success stories, and I'm really sorry about that, but we had wonderful success stories from Kim Cairns and from Jen Lofgren, and just talked about some of the results that we've experienced with some of our clients. And so what we're going to have to do is, because that footage is lost, we're going to have to save that topic for an upcoming webinar. And so I hope you'll join us in future. We really look forward to having you share some of our stories with us, and please let us know what else you'd like to see in the way of content. And so on behalf of Mr. Kim Cairns and Ms. Jen Lofgren and Sherwin Arnott, our wonderful tech guru, and myself, David Corey, with the Emotional Intelligence Training Company, we have to apologize for missing the original ending of the video, and we hope to see you next time, where we'll be much better at the technical aspects of Google Hangouts. So we'll see you then. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.